All right, quick, name something that may be as prevalent or more prevalent than campaign ads, but slightly less annoying. How about those campaign signs that have been popping up in your neighborhood like, well, Jack Harlow? Those Vote For Me placards and banners that crowd seemingly every corner. 1 week from primary election day coming up. And we've seen your messages about the political signs, mostly about how you are ready to see them come down. Chief political reporter Joe Paris found out there's not one straight answer as to when these signs need to come down and who does it.
Some scoop poop, others mow lawns. But what about these people? Well, they want your vote, and they want your vote so badly that they're trying to make sure you remember their name. How? By posting political signs everywhere you look. But how much longer will they be up? A voter in Boise texted in with their 2 cents saying, "I can't wait for the primary to be over so we can take down a bunch of these candidate signs that make our beautiful Idaho ugly. They should be limited on how many signs and how early they can go up."
News channels get questions about them. Local municipalities get questions about signs. And the bottom line with signs is simply that it is really the candidate's responsibility to understand the laws that regulate signs.
Chad Houck is Chief Deputy Secretary of State. He says for the most part, election signs and rules around them don't really fall under their banner.
Those laws don't fall within campaign finance laws, and that's one of the spaces, the jurisdictions of the Secretary of State's office. So the laws that we look at for signs is that they're clearly disclosing who's making the investment in purchasing those signs. That's where you see that paid for by and the name of the campaign or whoever is purchasing those signs, whatever those signs might say.
So who is watching for signs that may be in the way or signs that have been destroyed that are essentially just trash hanging on to life on the side of the road?
That's all more within the realms of, because we mostly see them on roadways, that's actually the Department of Transportation, the Highway Department, the county highway districts that have that jurisdiction. And that actually falls within Idaho code.
The Idaho Transportation Department sent a letter to candidates back in April to remind them of some state codes that deal with putting up signs. Things like not putting a sign on private property without permission, or putting up signs that mimic a traffic sign that could confuse drivers. Signs also need to stay out of the right-of-way of traffic. ITD shares this tip on placing signs in an okay area. Here's the guidance, quote, "If there's a fence running along the highway, you probably shouldn't place signs anywhere between the fence and the highway. If you don't see a fence, but you see power poles along the highway, those are generally placed just inside the right-of-way. So you can use power poles as a general marker and not post signs between them and the highway." ITD says a great thing candidates can do is collect signs after the polls close, adding that they prefer to not send out crews to collect signs, but if those signs remain up long enough, they will be grabbed by ITD and they'll be held onto for 10 days after an election, so campaigns hypothetically could go collect them. Meanwhile, agencies like ACHD ask that signs be placed 40 feet back from an intersection so drivers don't have their vision obstructed. They also ask that signs be taken down 48 hours after the election. So who is supposed to take down the signs?
As far as bringing them down, I think that's more of a social pressure. As a political candidate, you don't want to have your name out there, especially if you weren't successful in a primary. You don't want to see your name be the thing that's out littering streets and eventually blowing across the highways of our state.
All right, Joe, those ITD rules seem pretty vague, and a lot of that video you showed, that's not 40 feet removed from an intersection, so I don't know who's going to be monitoring that. But what happens after the election if the signs stay up?
Well, the advice is to reach out to the campaign. If you see a lot of signs from one candidate, the advice is to reach out to them and say, hey, whether you're aware of this or not, your campaign signs are all over this area and we'd like to get them cleared. And then the campaign really should, as we heard in the story, by social pressure, go and clean those up, because nobody wants to see trash on the side of the roads. But as Brian highlighted, there is a little bit of an intricacy of the rules and the enforcement. And to be completely blunt here, Brian, there's no way for ITD and ACHD and other highway districts to run around the entire state and police every street corner. They really are hoping that campaigns and volunteers are being respectful and making sure that signs are out of the way or not distracting drivers. Outside of that, though, it is kind of, take care of yourself. And we will see on May 18th if a lot of these signs start to come down. I've talked to politicians in past years that say, win or lose, they know it's very important that they and their volunteers get out there and clean those signs, because as you heard Mr. Houck talk about, there could be a bad connotation if you lose or win, but your signs are still up weeks later.
It's kind of comical at some of these intersections. Like you could see where water features are completely covered You don't even get to see the water feature behind all of these political signs.
Ah, yes, Eagle Road. I see you've driven by there.
A few times. All right, thank you very much, Joe.